Hello, Commanders fans. Today we have some hot news that you can't miss. So get ready, because there's a lot of important information coming your way. Before we begin, we'd like to take this opportunity to subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell, and stay up to date on all the news about our Washington Commanders. Don't forget to leave a like, which greatly strengthens our community and helps bring this content to the most passionate fans of the team. Now, without further ado, let's get straight to today's news.
Dan Quinn may have finally found the formula to reignite Mike Sainristil's flame. At 6'3" and 225 pounds, cornerback Mike Sainristil is the shortest player on the Washington Commanders roster. This has never been seen as a problem due to the intelligence and stamina of the Michigan-trained player. But as Sainristil has struggled for much of this season, questions have begun to arise about his physique. It was believed that Sainristil would succeed this year because he would be able to play in his most natural position, on the sideline. In 2024, he was forced to play on the perimeter due to injuries. A healthy Marshawn Lattimore and the talented rookie Trey Amos would take over the wing position in 2025, and Sainristil would move to the middle of the field, where his ability to read plays would make him a force in the center of the field. At least, that was the plan. Mike Sainristil has had some good moments as the Commanders' primary cornerback. Sainristil has been part of the Commanders' defense, which has severely regressed in 2025. He wasn't the main culprit, but he contributed to the collapse. After missing only 7 tackles all last season, he missed 6 in 2025. This raised his missed tackle percentage to over 10% after hovering around 7% as a rookie. Now that the Commanders have lost Lattimore and Amos, Sainristil is being called up again to play on the sideline. The Week 11 game against the Miami Dolphins marked his debut at the position in 2025. The results have been mixed. Miami came onto the field prepared to run the ball. They frequently used the 2 tight end formation, 12 personnel, and on many occasions went even further, bringing in an extra offensive lineman. This resulted in several tight formations, in which Sainristil found himself covering tight end Greg Dulcich. Since the Dolphins rarely sent an open receiver to the left, Sainristil, playing on the right side of the defense throughout the game, often lined up in the box. At first glance, it seemed he hadn't changed positions, only sides of the field. He frequently gave the impression of playing the traditional slot cornerback role. But that wasn't the case. He was generally responsible for the outside receiver, and this seemed to limit his aggressiveness in supporting the defense against the run. Sainristil rarely got involved in a tackle unless it was part of his coverage role. The fact that the Dolphins consistently attacked the other side of the defense successfully also left him with little to do on many plays. It was a somewhat inconsistent performance. In coverage, he proved solid. Playing open, even against larger receivers, didn't seem to bother him.
There is important news in the roster, and this time it involves the kicker position, one of the most sensitive and decisive points on any NFL team. The Washington Commanders officially announced on Monday the release of kicker Matt Gay, ending a brief and uneven stint for the veteran in his first season with the team. The decision comes shortly after a 16-13 overtime loss to the Miami Dolphins in Madrid in an international game valid for Week 11 of the NFL. Gay's performance in the game ended up being a central factor in the coaching staff's choice. Despite converting 2 relatively short kicks of 26 and 30 yards, the kicker was not as efficient when more needed. He missed attempts of 51 and 56 yards, both at key moments of the game, especially considering the balance between the teams and the difficulty of the Washington offense in capitalizing on opportunities throughout the night. Either of those kicks could have avoided overtime or even given the Commanders the victory. These errors ultimately highlighted a problem that had been growing throughout the season. Within the 50-yard line, Gay had been extremely consistent, with an impressive 9 successful kicks out of 10 attempts, in addition to a perfect performance on extra points, making 22 out of 22 attempts. This level of accuracy is usually enough to keep any kicker comfortable on the roster. However, the scenario changes drastically when analyzing long-range kicks. On attempts of 50 yards or more, Gay converted only 4 out of 9, a success rate that raises alarm bells for any franchise, especially a team that has faced offensive difficulties and frequently relies on special teams to score. Matt Gay, who has played for the Buccaneers, Rams, and Colts, has built a reputation for reliability since being drafted in 2019. At 31 years old, he arrived at the Commanders with the status of a safe and experienced veteran, bringing with him a respectable 84% field goal percentage throughout his career. However, his performance this season, with a conversion rate of only 68.4%, represents his worst mark since entering the NFL, signaling a decline the team could no longer ignore. With his departure, the Commanders now enter a crucial moment, the urgent search for a new kicker to fill the position and bring stability to the final stretch of the season.
Javon Kinlaw may have finally made the leap that Commanders fans have been waiting for. The Washington Commanders suffered another defeat, their 6th consecutive, losing in overtime to the Miami Dolphins in the NFL's opening game in Madrid. It was a lamentable performance, riddled with glaring errors and extremely questionable tactical decisions. The Commanders had numerous chances to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, but failed to capitalize. Unlike the last 4 weeks, there were some bright spots. One of them was a player who needed a better performance as much as anyone else on the Commanders' roster. In Week 10, the Commanders were humiliated by the Detroit Lions. The lowest point of the game occurred in the second quarter when defensive linemen Darren Payne and Javon Kinlaw got into a scuffle with wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown. Payne was ejected, while Kinlaw received a penalty for unsportsmanlike conduct after contact with a referee. Javon Kinlaw demonstrated the dominance that made the Commanders spend so much. Payne was also suspended for Week 11. Kinlaw made a poor impression with his distant attitude after the game. He was Adam Peters' main offseason signing and in 10 games had recorded 20 combined tackles and no sacks. Suffice it to say, no one needed to prove themselves more in Madrid than Kinlaw, especially as the main player on Washington's defensive line. He rose to the challenge and at the end of the fourth quarter made what should have been the game-winning play, tackling Dolphins running back Devon Achane at the goal line on 3rd down. The Commanders stopped Miami again on the next play when Mike McDaniel inexplicably attempted a 4th down, giving Washington the chance for a decisive drive to win. Unfortunately, kicker Matt Gay had other plans, and a brutal interception by Marcus Mariota on the first play of overtime practically sealed the loss. Kinlaw certainly did his part. He had 5 combined tackles in the game, his best mark in a single game all season. Overall, the Commanders' defense looked noticeably better after coach Dan Quinn took over play-calling duties in place of Joe Witt Jr. It may have only been against the Dolphins, who are shooting below .500, but it's still worthwhile amidst this gloomy scenario. The Commanders placed a lot of faith in Kinlaw last summer, and like most of the team, he has struggled to live up to expectations. But his performance against Miami was a much-needed reminder of why he received a 3-year, $45 million contract with $30 million guaranteed.